Hello and welcome to your weekly dose of e-commerce entertainment, the Watson Weekend. I'm your co-host,
We're
Rick Watson.
co-hosts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we're a
are.
team. We're a team now. We're on
Yeah,
episode 27. Haven't been canceled yet. Sort of surprising. But I'm Jessica Lasewski, and we are excited to talk to you today and unpack all of the latest retail events. On top of, we've got an amazing guest who's been on the brand side, the retail side, the agency side. Lots to talk about with him as we unpack who's are the winners and losers in retail. So it's going to be a very entertaining show.
I'm excited about that. This week has been a fun one for me. I was in New Orleans, my hometown,
Nolans.
Nolans. Yeah, for those in the know,
But yeah,
with my daughter. So it's a good week with the grandparents. Just back and ready to rock again.
that's right. Yeah, it's the shortened week. So
Yes.
it's the vacation or the day off is always a blessing and a curse, right?
Right.
You enjoy the day off and then you basically pack a whole week of work into 4 days.
100%. Like the rest of your week gets like totally slammed with meetings
Yeah.
every single day. And then you like wonder like maybe I shouldn't have taken that day off.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? We pay the price. So it's okay.
It's great. So we have a number of great things on the show today. As you mentioned, we were talking about retail earnings. We have a fantastic guest. As a reminder, we are a live show. So if you are listening, anyone really, if you're listening at all, we'd love to understand like where you're calling in from, and drop that in the comments below, whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn. We're happy to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. And feel free to ask us questions. You can ask our guests questions. The spirit of this is that you hopefully are walking away with something that you didn't know before. Or maybe you're just we brought a little laugh to your Friday.
Yeah.
So we'll take that also.
Yeah, let's be honest. Less knowledge, more laughter, really.
More
That's what we're
laughter. Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Limited knowledge
That's
being
true.
conveyed here.
Yeah, yeah. But I always walk away with something new personally. I feel like slightly a little bit smarter after these conversations, not because of anything I said, but generally because it's coming from one of our guests. So
Love it.
I think you've got some things that have happened at this
Yeah,
time.
we always have interesting facts about today, and there are three things that we will have in 1879. Again, we're kind of going back to New York City, New York state of mind. Madison Square Garden opens in New York, 1879. The building is that old?
Yeah, that's
I
pretty
think it's
amazing.
maybe the original building. It
Yeah.
seems like that.
Yeah, and actually, James Madison was one of the presidents that in my 3rd or 4th grade, going way, way back in the time machine, I did a like report on. But Madison
Hmm.
is now forever changed after seeing Hamilton,
Hmm.
where he's like old and coughing and
Yeah.
frail. Yeah.
Yeah, also little known fact, James Madison was childhood buddies with Joe Biden.
Oh my God. Yeah, you went there. There we
I did.
go.
We might as well. It's the 1911 in a forever a black stain on the country of Ireland, depending on which part of Ireland you're talking about. The RMS Titanic launched in Belfast.
Yes. And
Ill,
RIP.
yeah, R.I.P. Ill-fated. The unsinkable Molly Brown,
The
sadly. Oh,
unsinkable Molly Brown. Also, I mean, look, seriously, Jack could have fit on the raft. Like, who are the people in our audience that believe that Jack could not have fit on the raft? I want to know.
he,
Let's just end
he
that
could
debate
have.
right
Yeah, add your comment here. Jack
now.
on the raft or not, or should he have just slid away?
Yeah. Yeah, as he
I don't
did.
know. Finally, 1985, my hometown, New Orleans Saints, were sold for $70 million. I think, look, most NFL franchises are worth billions now, so we're excited to continue that. Of course, like the longest franchise without a winning record until Drew Brees came along, so that was helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, do you have like a ode to Drew Brees? Do you have a Drew Brees tattoo?
I have a shrine,
Uh-huh.
in my house to
Yeah.
Drew Brees. Yes, I do.
Yeah,
Facts.
he totally changed the trajectory of the franchise. We're still waiting for that
Yeah.
on the Panthers side.
The Panther Carolina has a franchise?
They do. They do. But you know what? I'm
Where did
forever
they pick this
always
year?
All right, let's change the subject.
All right, new topic.
New topic. Erase.
Yeah, let's use that go into the headline hangover. Uh,
Ah,
think so this is where we break down 5 of the top stories of the week and month, and we're
yeah.
gonna start on the beauty side because let's be honest, we all need a makeover here.
We sure do. And, the ELF team, Eyes, Lips, Face, have essentially brought it. They have had 21 consecutive quarters of growth net sales and market share growth. The community is responding so well to the value proposition, powerhouse innovation, and the marketing engine that knows how to engage and entertain their community, kind of per the CEO. And it was kind of interesting to hear what was the formula or the playbook
Mm,
for success. International is growing, grew
mm,
115% last quarter, and it's growing profitably. They said Canada and the UK have been really some of the growth engines for the company's margins. They're in our producers turf now. They're in Ireland.
mm,
They're in Ireland. They're in Italy. They're in the Netherlands. They said there's pent up demand in these countries before ELF even gets there.
mm.
And they also addressed the Too Many Dicks campaign, which we talked about last week. They said, look, there's nothing wrong, Rick. There's nothing wrong with you. We just know, look, there isn't enough diversity, and it matters to us because these are the communities that we serve, and they put their money where their mouth is as well. Their employee base, 75% women, 65% Gen Z and
Mm.
millennial, and 45% diverse. So my hat's off to ELF. They understand their customer market opportunity. They're seizing it. Do you think anything's going to slow them down?
No, I am hugely bullish on the brand. I think their collabs are smart, they're on
Yep.
trend, and that's very hard to find. And who knew that Ireland needed a glow up? And apparently, in between the pints of Guinness, you have time to change your lipstick shade.
Look, yeah, there's lots of opportunity for beauty everywhere, and beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and clearly it's in the eyes of ELF. So, all right, take
100%.
us on to our next story.
Yeah, speaking of things that are not doing well, like kind of going in the other direction, are the
Hmm.
wheels coming off at Peloton? They have announced that they're doing a $200 million savings plan. Essentially, look, they're restructuring their debt to save on cash flow. We still don't really know what the new plan for the business is. Um, in the corporate mind, they're doing some restructuring and planning, but what's the next act? We're still kind of waiting on that. And so the question is, are the wheels already off? Are they still coming off? Or is one small wheel still hanging on by a thread?
I think the wheel, which is their content and their influencers slash instructors, are for sure like that little tiny wheel that like spins in the back.
Right.
Maybe it's stuck in the Alabama mud, like in My Cousin Vinny, and
I love that.
it's kind of yeah keeping it back. But yeah, I think that for most the other three wheels are off, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's sad, and it's like, look, you have these celebrity influencers. How long are they going to stay around? Most of them can make money on their own, doing other things, and many of them
Already
have
are
more.
probably.
Exactly,
Yeah.
already are. So I think perhaps the window has passed. It's a great product. It's not a great franchise, and I think they still need some more transformation
Yeah.
from that point of view.
At this
And
point, does
speaking,
someone
yeah,
just scoop them up from for a bargain? I don't know.
it's possible, and speaking of transformation, it looks like some of the other, companies need some transformation based on some of this news coming out.
Yeah. So, for some of you probably have heard, there was a modern retail story.
Mm,
It's also made its rounds in lots of different places. This is why we love the subreddit crew, because if there's a story to find, they will find it. And essentially, it's come out that for a long time, there was speculation Target was selling on these marketplaces, eBay, Poshmark, and this seller account, Bullseye Deals, has
mm,
popped up and surfaced and looks eerily similar to our Bullseye friends at Target. And some of the composition of the products are there as well. And so I think there was probably a lot of people are trying to sniff it out, like what's happening, is there really a scandal here? Look, this is my take. I don't think it's surprising that a retailer like Target would try to monetize closeout merchandise. It's happened for decades. Lots of retailers have done this. Is there really harm here, whether it's them selling or it's a third party selling? Like, who cares? Is this really a story? I don't know.
I
What do you
agree.
think?
It's kind of a story non-story, which again, we live in a clickbait world, and we're here
We
for it.
do.
We're material girls
I mean, we're
too.
talking
So
about it here. So I think my last thing is with this could also be research for Target Plus. Wait, is that a thing?
Target Plus is somewhat a thing.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
somewhat.
All right. Somewhat. Okay.
Management
All
has forgotten about it, however.
right.
We have talked about it more than management in the last earnings calls.
Also true story.
Facts.
Also not the path to the promised land. So, all right, keep us
No.
rolling. What else you got in this land of inventory and surplus? You
Yeah,
got
in
another
this
story for us here.
we do, and we're talking about bringing more inventory to the promised land, although I'm not sure if America's the promised land at the moment. The Port of Los Angeles cargo volumes have risen 12% year over year in April, and imports are up 21% year over year, as total exports have really skyrocketed as well. You know, the question is, like, we have a lot of volume moving into the West Coast. Retailers really cut down their inventory last year, and like, look, this is what you call a good comp, right?
Yeah.
Inventory was slashed last year, and so up 12% is kind of the new flat for inventory
True.
this year. I think so. I guess, to me, is there a question of, is this smart by retailers? Is there just more incremental?
I think they're getting smarter with the supply chain. Also, there is this labor negotiations, right, for port
Mm,
workers on the East Coast and the Gulf Coast. And a lot of this had to deal, or like a lot of this stemmed from the Port of Los Angeles cargo volumes rising, which by default, isn't this also just a contingency plan, right? People are moving some volume over to the West Coast ports, which is going to raise the incremental year over year too. So, yeah, I think that up is probably just a weird comp at the end of the day, right?
yeah, and like, speaking about the global shipping industry, one thing that's really moved in the past 2 months is container prices. Now, container prices are up like 2.5 times they were just like 6 months ago. Now we're seeing over like $10,000 containers. I think, to be honest, this is part of um, the Flexport CEO's transformation plan. Jack up container prices.
There we go. Hey, if you can't if you can't find your market, create your market, right?
Exactly. You might as well.
You might as well. All right. So I've got the last story here. And this really is kind of the inspiration behind my headline today, because stars really are like us. And the story here is, are we bending it like Beckham? Alibaba, AliExpress have, as you know, agreed to an exclusive e-commerce platform partnership with European football's governing body. David Beckham now is the global ambassador for AliExpress. That was announced. They rolled out a whole ad with all these beautiful and amazing things that you can get on AliExpress. I mean, it's affordable. It's great. So as David Beckham is the
AliExpress,
face.
what is that, like Temu and Shein? By the way,
Mm,
bingo.
yes, it is. We're going to call it Shimu. So yes, it is like just like that. And if you guys are okay, I'd love to just show you what I
Ooh,
think that David has going to start to pick out for his Father's Day gifts. You okay if I fire it up?
I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah, okay. So we're just going to start here on the homepage. Again, you see this promotion here for Euro 2024. Super excited. It's football, everywhere else except in America. We call it soccer. And lucky for David, Victoria is going to be able to get some things because, cash is tight for them at
All right.
90% off. Look at all of these
That's
deals.
great.
Look at
Top
these
brands. 50
top picks,
cents.
top brands. First come, first serve. I mean, this little printer. But really, what I believe he's holding out for are these Puma print men's pants at $4.99.
Ooh.
So lots of colors. Do we think he's a medium or a large? Not sure.
Yeah, I'm not
But either
sure.
way, lots, and free returns in 90 days. David's been traveling a lot. And so, because he doesn't have all the time to work out, he's also, she can get him this little ab stimulator for the bargain price of $279.
I
Lots
love
of
it.
great gifts here.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
3-minute abs.
3-minute abs. And then the last thing is, when David's on the go, he's got to have some places to like put his devices, right? So he can do his podcasting, so he can do his calls. a beautiful foldable mobile phone holder, laptop holder, iPad holder. Again, $199. What's not to love?
I love it.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the subtext here is that David Beckham has signed a global licensing deal with Alibaba. The question is, what the hell is he actually buying from these places? We thought he was selling Omega watches or
Not
Rolex
so
or something
much.
like that.
No.
Not so much anymore.
Well,
He's
there's probably a
selling.
fake Rolex on there.
Come on, Jess. Come on.
There's no fake products. We
Yeah.
care about authenticity.
Yeah. As Saturday Night Live said, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. No lead.
Right?
No
lead.
forced labor.
Exactly. Minimal
Don't
lead.
worry. Minimal lead.
Minimal lead.
Normal working hours.
Right.
Okay. All right. So that's our headline hangover. Lots of fun there. Let us know in the comments what you guys would like to put on your Father's Day wish list, and we'll help hook you up. We'll give you some ideas.
We're excited. So thank you for that. We are going to move from a headline hangover into our first story, which is Walmart, and then getting into retail earnings and our guest. Walmart over the past week has reported earnings, and I'll say Temu, and like Walmart is executing better than many other players out there right now, and they've kind of flexed on the market compared to some other retailers, in particular, like the best Macy's store, i.e. the ones they didn't just like shut down because they were completely terrible. And Neil Saunders has like stomped on them. Walmart sales are up 3.8%, comp sales totals. Their operating income grew 4 times that at 12.9% constant currency. And listen to this, Walmart eCommerce grew 22%. Like,
yeah, it's
6 years
insane.
ago, they had to beg, borrow, and steal Mark Lorry
Yeah.
for an e-com business.
And set up a e-com headquarters in the Bay Area to really feel relevant, right? And get talent. So
Yeah.
it's a whole new world.
Yeah. And so if you look at the thing that really struck me was the operating income improvement of 12.9%. A third of that improvement came from new businesses, which is like really amazing. Ads, membership, Walmart Plus. I don't know if you saw, like, even just before the call, Walmart has announced their Walmart Plus week, which
Yes.
I don't know if you remember, like 2015 when like Prime Day started. Like, I think I remember like around that time frame, it was like, how do we get new Prime signups? Like, we're gonna have a Prime Day. Like, Walmart Plus week is about what? New Walmart Plus signups. And that's the last thing I want if I'm Amazon, from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting is they talk about in their earnings this new swath of consumers that they are reaching, and it's higher income consumers. They are 100% stealing share from Target. So Target is in a panic. And I think it's interesting that they're talking about the number of people shopping more frequently, which really lends itself to their grocery business performing better, right? That's what brings people in time and time again is, Walmart's become more of a player in this grocery space. So, should people like Kroger be concerned, right? As Kroger's continuing to try to find ways to stay relevant. They're trying to open up marketplaces, expand into categories like apparel. Is Walmart really now the next, the Amazon that everyone should be chasing versus worried as much about Amazon?
Yeah, I think they're shining a light for the rest of the omni-channel retailers that are looking for some kind of defensible model against Amazon. The challenge is there's only one Walmart. And so these middle market retailers like a Kohl's and Macy's and like counted down the line, JCPenney is like, what do you got here? You're not gonna work here anymore.
Not gonna work here. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Walmart's playbook has been pretty simple. Like, how do we reduce e-commerce losses by shipping from stores more? That's the playbook that Target over the past 12 years went from like 25% ship from store to like 98% now. Walmart's kind of on that same trajectory. I don't think they've released this number recently, but I expect they're over like 2/3 ship from store at this point. That's helped reduce their losses per parcel by 40% already. Marketplace is a big part of the growth because a marketplace seller then buys ads and fulfillment. And so there's a lot of attached to that revenue that Amazon had figured out a long time ago. Walmart is
Sure.
like, oh, wait, why don't we just like copy, paste?
Playbook, page, ripped
Exactly.
out, insert.
30, yeah, they say that the geniuses steal, like amateurs copy, something like that. What marketplace is up 36% year over year in terms of seller count on there. Over 30% of those are using fulfillment services at the same time. And over 50% of the advertising growth came from marketplace sellers, which is unbelievable. Like back in our Barnes and Noble days, we could not dream. We couldn't even dream this little dream at the time.
No, we tried. We tried to dream that dream and tried and failed.
It did not work.
It did
By the
not. It
way,
did not work.
do yourself a favor. Go to barnesandnoble.com. Try to find the marketplace. She gone.
She does not exist.
She gone.
Rip out. So the other thing I think to talk about really quick on Walmart, and we'd love to bring in our guest, is the thing that's interesting is the categories that are growing. We talked about them in the marketplace space. It's furniture, sporting goods, kids apparel, home, growing more than 20%. But Walmart's really smart there because they're bringing on lots of interesting brands, and they have this Better Homes and Gardens, which is like not really a brand per se, but had a lot of clout in the design space and in like publishing world, right? So smart to bring them on. Actually, I bought some things. Furniture's really good, holds up well, and it's inexpensive. And they're also taking the page out of Amazon's playbook, where you know how in Shein too, right? You do these Shein hauls, you try on all the clothing. They're doing that in apparel, but they've really got this interior design space starting to lock up around furniture for less. So you see them on Pinterest all the time. You see all these influencers talking about their Walmart hauls, but from an interiors perspective. So I think it's kind of an interesting game that they're playing there.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And they're one of the players that have figured out home goods right now, because home goods is down across literally any retailer that you can look at. 100% rough o'clock. But their marketplace sales in furniture, sporting goods, apparel, home grew 20% plus, because they don't, first of all, they don't care. We don't hold the inventory anyway. So it's
your
good for
inventory,
them.
not my problem.
Yeah, your inventory is not my opportunity. Like, it is my margin opportunity, but it's not my cost of goods. Not my cost of goods problem.
Yes, exactly. All right. So I think we'd like to bring on our guests, and we can close out this conversation and also get into some other winners and losers in retail at a category level. So we are thrilled to have Matt Ezyk join us, who is the director of e-commerce at petsupermarket.com. What we love about Matt is his background. He's got decades of experience building and scaling digital e-commerce operations and strategies at so many different companies. He has worked with brands like Uniqlo, Disney, Revlon, Tapestry on his agency side. He also has been the director of functional architecture, which I want to understand more about what that is. And the director of PMO at RafterOne, also PixelMEDIA, where he had oversight for brands like Skechers and LL Bean. So he's really been on both sides, and we'd love to unpack his experience. So welcome, Matt, to the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Do you think you're Nick Fury? Is that right?
Yeah. We joke about the first agency that I worked with in the manware space. We were like the Avengers of e-commerce, and we've gone on to start so many different agencies and lead so many others. So there's so much talent that was at that agency, and I kind of wrangled it all together. So that's what at least what I consider myself. I just need the jaunty eye patch.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So like would you say you're a little bit of a renegade in the like retail brand space?
Yeah, I just always tried to find a place to fit in. I've done all different types of things. So being able to take all of that experience and apply it here has been really cool.
That's amazing. So we also do know where you can get an eye patch hookup. It's on AliExpress, and it'll cost you about a penny. Might cost you $20 to ship it, but hey,
it'll take a while too.
It's all about the look, right? Right. All right. So I think we wanted to get into some things that have come up recently in terms of who are the winners and losers in retail. We just talked about Walmart. Not sure if there's anything else you want to unpack there, but what we're starting to see is that retail sales are falling from initially what we had thought would be I'd say maybe a generous comp, right? Like 3 to 4%. Categories that are not doing so well, furniture, home furnishing stores, like Rick, you talked about that. So they're down 8.4% year over year. At least when you looked at the month of April, they were down about 0.5% month over month. There was a drop in spending in health and personal care, which has been on a tear, right?
Yeah.
Not hurting our friends at Elf, but is that probably why Walgreens said, hey, look, we're going to cut prices on like 1,500 plus items. So curious, like Matt, what are you guys seeing in the pet space? How does pets doing these days?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging space, right? And I think it's difficult, not just in pet, but in any vertical to navigate the growth post-COVID. I think there's a lot of brands that saw the spike in demand. Like pet was a good example of that. Everybody seemed like adopted a dog or a cat during that time. And a lot of people thought like, oh, great, look at this growth. Let's prepare. Let's buy new technology. And we saw obviously the dip and decline in it last year and this year. So, we saw 3, 4, sometimes 10 years of growth in 3 months, and it's not realistic to expect that to continue. So I was, most of that time I was on the agency side, and it was just such a wild time. We couldn't hire people fast enough, and it's such a difference from where we're at now.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's actually interesting too, because apparel, like we talk about categories and like where things are breaking down. We know apparel's been struggling if you're not Shein. But we heard about Abercrombie and Fitch, like just tore up their earnings recently. We talked about them on the show. Matt, not expecting you to follow all these industries, but I'm curious, like your perspective holistically on like what makes a winner versus what makes a loser, whether it's your experience in brands that you've worked with or, worked on in terms of the agency side.
Yeah. I mean, most of my experience is fashion cosmetics. So I like to follow what they're doing. I think where brands struggle is there's just seems like a lot of panic and desperation to do something with things like AI and whatever the shiny new thing is. But to win, you really need to get the basics right and strengthen your core. So is the site fast? Does the path to purchase make sense? Are the customers converting? And then really get to the unsexy things like cutting acquisition costs and, reining in the costs of your advertising, your MER, like things like that from the financial side. So you really see like the what I call the digitally mature brands like Elf doing all sorts of things like that really are outside the box and innovative. And they can do those because they have their basics down.
Yeah. Miles Thomas talked about reviewing pet services, and I think that's been a big growth area for Chewy and Petco and others in the space. Like services revenue has outpacing goods revenue for a lot of these things because again, you need pet insurance, and if you don't have pet insurance, like it doesn't cover everything still. So
yeah, we offer both of those things, right? We started offering pet insurance last year. That's done really well with our partners at Spot. And we recently have really expanded the omni-channel and digital capabilities of booking services online. Just really, just being more omni-channel, really trying to meet our customers where they want to be.
No, that's great. And I think this kind of moves us into the next part of our conversation, which is your tenure at, you've been on the agency side for so long, stepping into an operator role at a retailer during a time where retail is challenged. You have to be in a lot of places at once, like kind of a virtual Swiss Army knife. Talk about like technically what your role is, and then it's almost like you see this like, this is what I signed up for, this is what I'm actually doing. Sometimes those things don't match up at all. I would love to hear more about that.
What I do now is not completely different, but almost completely different from what I
By the way, your boss
for.
is not watching. We will not send this in. This is just between us.
We're not syndicated. We're not that big.
This was by design, right? Like I came in here in the technology organization, and what I loved about it was just so raw, coming off of like a new implementation of all this Salesforce tech we have. I love that, right? I can come in and fix things and build and really like that. But one of the areas of opportunity that I realized we didn't have was we didn't have a digital team to kind of just grow the business, right? Our site was just really just kind of run by different groups like merchandising and marketing, but we didn't have a digital team at all. So pitched that idea to the leadership. We agreed to do it. So I founded our digital team in 22, shortly after I started here. So my role now is very different from like being like in a technology role. It's more on the business side, which is something the company needed, something I personally love the challenge. And like you mentioned, it's definitely challenging in this retail landscape. And you have to really like learn about like what competitors are doing, what people are doing in other verticals. So I definitely pay attention to fashion, cosmetics, and all these different verticals, because there's a lot of things they do to please their customers that the customers love that we can adopt too. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, right?
Well, I think it's interesting because you talk about brands and building these communities. Elf has built this community. People love their pet, and they are like crazy about their pet. I know I say my dog Banks is the only child that loves me unconditionally and never talks back. Therefore, he's my favorite child. No one tell my kids that.
Facts.
But yeah, so how do you think about the way that you drum up, and you said you take some of those learnings? What's like kind of been most interesting to you that you've seen? You're like, oh yeah, I want to take a page out of that playbook.
I think just from like the promotional strategies that you see in a fashion and apparel, like we apply a lot of them and test them, and some of them work, some of them don't. So that's been really fun and interesting to see like what our customers are liking, what they don't, what they gravitate towards, what makes them convert, and then we just continue to hone that in and dial it in. That's been super fun. So there's a lot of brands out there I admire, like Elf is one of them, Crocs is one of them. They just do a lot of really innovative things in the space. So even when we like came in and we didn't actually have BOPUS in when I started here, so we worked with our design agency, just build it from scratch, and we just sat around and say, hey, we're customers, right? What do we like? What brands do we like? And we talked about Target and Best Buy and Home Depot, and so you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just kind of take something from the inspiration of the different things you like and put it together, test it, and see how it goes.
You talked about inspiration and innovation, and I think that's a topic that a lot of particularly larger retailers haven't grasped yet, where like the world has passed them by in the past 5 or 10 years. And the realization is like, we need to make decisions quickly, which means we need to have the data, we need to have the capabilities, and then we need to be able to risk failure and then keep doing it. Has the window to make decisions gotten shorter from your point of view?
Yeah, and there's so much that's changing with technology, right? Especially like AI is so huge now, but there's so much noise.
Buzzword, bingo, booyah.
Yeah,
hit your card.
There you go. Yeah, hopefully there's no AI drinking game here.
That's after 5 at a reasonable hour.
There's just so much noise in the space around that in particular, but really everything. And there's so many things you can try. You just have to pick something, test it. If you fail fast, you move on. That's what I found has been successful.
Yeah. We talk a lot about learning from our past to inform the future. 20 years of experience in this space. What have you seen that you feel like is relevant to today? Or do you feel like the whole old playbook has to be ripped up, rewritten, and started fresh?
I mean, you can definitely learn from things in the past, but for the most part, it's difficult in this space because things change so often. Especially with everything that's changed in the last few years, you can kind of throw a lot of what you're trying to do out the window, and you have to pivot. So it's difficult to do in this space. So everything it changes. I think we can talk for a month from now, and there'll be so much that's different.
Yeah. And we have a question from Miles Thomas, and I think it's interesting. So you talk about building, communities, learning. Is there a loyalty like strategy that you have, or loyalty strategies you've seen in your other experience that works for brands?
Yeah, it's when you have a pet, you rely on a lot of these products, right? It's not just like buying a shirt or a pair of shoes. You're taking care of these living things, and they need food and supplies. So it's so important to give convenience to customers. So that's why we're starting to play in different areas and channels where we never did before, where we're seeing our customers they're there. We want to meet them there. So we earn their loyalty by just giving them so many options and so many different products they can't get elsewhere, and then rewarding them for that. Right? We're really we're changing our loyalty strategy to offer more than just the like the 1985 earn and burn with points. Right? We're doing more with our services business, and just really just trying to make that all encompassing, for a modern customer.
Yeah. So it sounds like, freshness of inventory, particularly in the retail side, is super important, because if you're just saying the same brands that you can find everywhere else, like, the consumer's moving on. They're like, they're going to the big box because they can find the Blue Buffalo that they know there.
Yep. Yeah, it's and there's also brands that we carry that I like to look at us like if you took the big box and you took the high end boutique mom and pop and put them together. That's kind of the space we play in. So we have brands you can't get elsewhere unless you go to a mom and pop, but it's not convenient to do that sometimes because we can offer like marketplaces like Instacart and BOPIS and all these different ways to do it. So that's typically what we do.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we have a lot of people on the call, and sometimes that listen. I say on the call like we're on the phone. God, I'm old school. We have a lot of people that watch the show that are on the vendor side and trying to sell to retailers. Curious, like, what are questions that you wish you are asked, as you're making decisions through whether it's technology that you're implementing or services that you're using from third parties? What do you wish like people would ask you that they're not?
This is great for me because just like I've been on the agency and brand side, I've also, for a very short time, I've been an AE in my career, very long time ago. It was a master class in learning how to talk to people and build relationships. So I think just the main thing is like just the approach, right? There's so much noise in the B2B SaaS space, especially as you're leading up to a conference. And I look at relationships like a bank. Like people are trying to, a lot of times in this situation, open an account and withdraw money without even having any money in there, right? So how do you add value to the person that you're talking to? So learning about like what their primary goals and objectives are, and most importantly, pain points, right? If you can solve a pain point for somebody, then that immediately gets my attention. Not just saying like, hey, I'm selling this thing, let's talk, when I don't even know who you are.
Right.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very valuable insight. And I think particularly if you're outsourcing your outreach and you have like a team of BDRs, like your job is to churn and burn.
Yeah.
And so you are immediately like racking up credit card debt against the bank account balance of your brand equity. Really at that point.
Very, very true. Yes.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we always talk a lot about people's successes and like their experiences. One interesting thing I know you brought to this conversation today is some failed experiments. There are some failed things that didn't work, which we also learn more from the failures sometimes than we do from the successes. And I think we're going to roll a video, and then we'd love to have you walk through some of your learnings.
Okay.
Yeah, that last shot was a woman giving a eulogy by Zoom at her own funeral. So
yes, so I can deliver a project eulogy that I've prepared. So, ladies and gentlemen, we gather here today to bid a fond farewell to our dear project codenamed Phoenix. And despite our best efforts, Phoenix couldn't rise from the ashes this time. Phoenix, you were ambitious, you aimed for the stars, but landed directly into the recycling bin. You taught us valuable lessons, and it's like never trust a budget spreadsheet that's too optimistic, and always double check if ASAP really means as soon as possible or a silly assumption of progress. Let's remember the good times, the endless coffee breaks, the bonding over mutual confusion, and the collective sighs when things went sideways. You always showed us the importance of backup plans and that a launch date is all that matters, even if the site doesn't work and it's missing all its data. Rest in peace, Phoenix. You may be gone, but the Slack memes will live on forever.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I got you a floral arrangement
Yeah.
for Phoenix. It's on its way to you.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
we're pouring out some liquor for
Nice.
Project.
Pour one
My-
out. Yeah,
My
pour one out.
condolences for Phoenix.
So yeah, it's interesting. So any kind of interesting learnings for you personally that you took from your career?
Yeah. I would say 90% of the projects I've worked on, the issues always stem to bad data and just data being everywhere. So the thing I learned, I think, pretty early is to build in gate processes into your projects, right? So
Yeah.
you get to a point where you should not continue and mutually agree with whoever you're working with that you cannot continue until X, Y, and Z are done.
Yeah.
That's been a monumental change in the way I've approached projects early on in my career, and that's been successful. And the project I mentioned, Codename Phoenix, was pretty tough to get past the point where we built it and didn't have the data, so it's you can't really test a site without.
You mean you
production
shouldn't just
data.
keep blindly blasting ahead no matter what happens in the outside world?
Right. Yeah, and then
that's where the
launch it and
bull and
see
the
what
training-
happens. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of on the flip side of that, do you find though, when we talk about the decision making, do you find that sometimes there is a analysis paralysis that happens, or just people get so wrapped up in the data and they have to find every little piece? And so are we able to just trust our gut anymore?
Yeah, you got to have a little bit of both, right? And we talked about the importance of making decisions, and if you're going to fail fast and move on and learn from it.
Yeah.
You really need to do both. Like if you're stuck and not moving, then that's not good either.
Yeah. And I think it's very telling that you talked about your innovation is really, it's a process innovation, really. It's not a technology innovation. It's like, we're not talking about AI here. We're just talking about like a better way to run projects, period.
Right.
End of discussion. And that comes from failure, which produces learning, which produces wisdom. And so like, as you make more and more mistakes, you actually learn like how not to make them again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, something that you also bring up a lot, Rick, I know when you approach projects with your clients is hey, are we all set on what we're trying to solve for here? And it sounds like, Matt, that's also some of the things that you were gut checking through this stage gate process that you have implemented now, which is like, hey, are we all operating from the same set of assumptions that this is the thing we came to solve? This is the results that we expect. This is what we want it to deliver. And if you can't check that as your gut, also as you're evaluating what gate you're at, feels like that starts to fall apart too.
Yeah, it's and that's why you have a discovery gate, right? Like,
Yeah.
are we all in agreement of what we're building and what we're not? Okay, let's move on. Right.
Yeah. One thing recently we've been talking about with a lot of retailers is just the idea of like, is this idea pre-product market fit or post-product market fit? Because if it's pre-product market fit, like, stop trying to monetize it so much. Like, stop trying to like pretend you're going to hit this metric or whatever, like too fast before you even know what the hell this thing is.
Yeah.
And you get it off the ground and functioning. And then later on, like when you see that there's some traction here, then you can like step on the gas, but not before.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So any other kind of exciting things, Matt, that you're like, man, you wakes you up out of bed and you're like, all right, I'm ready to go do this?
Yeah, there's so many like interesting things in this space, and some of them I don't think apply to my business yet, right? That's I think that's a key thing that people should understand, is that just because this new shiny thing is out in the space doesn't mean that you're right for it, or you may be right for it, but not in a year or two.
Not now.
Right.
The generative AI is a great example of that, but also like the augmented reality and virtual shopping with the Apple Vision Pro, right? You see what I mentioned, digitally mature brands doing that, and it may work for their customer, but we're such in an infancy with something like that. Like, I don't think it's really going to take off until you see the form factor be smaller, like a regular pair of glasses.
Right.
So it's easy to take the bait to go and do things like that, but you really have to keep yourself in check and make sure it makes sense for what you do.
Yeah. I mean, these are some great takeaways. I mean, focus on the fundamental, make sure that you have stage gates in your processes, and be prepared to evolve as your job changes. I think that was the start of our conversation,
Yep.
because you need to embrace the change in your career and not worry about, oh, this isn't what I signed up for.
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how you learn. Like, if you're not uncomfortable, then you're not learning.
it's change or die, right? Isn't that the whole thing?
Yeah.
So, which brings us back to the eulogy. I mean, it all comes full circle here
Yeah.
on the Watson weekend. So, well, Matt, I hope that you've got your dance moves ready, because as you
course.
know, we have a dance off on this show. But before we get there, we're going to bring up our resident field expert, Nick Kaplan, for a little bit of Kaplan's Corner.
This is awesome. We're excited. We will welcome you back shortly, Matt.
Hello.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey.
Welcome
The
back,
Phoenix has landed to bring you some notes from Kaplan's Corner this week. So much great material to work with on the show. Hopefully my wife is not watching. My kids will not watch, because full court press is going on in the Kaplan household for a dog.
Ooh.
Well, like Matt and all the...
Yeah, Matt could be helpful there.
But
He's
we're
gonna hook
not
up.
helpful, actually. And we're going to talk this week about the arrival of the age of efficiency. It has arrived. And as Rick talked about, we do talk a lot to our clients about sort of transformation, evolution. And, one of the things about companies is like value, and the public and private markets decide what value is, which is effectively what will someone pay for something. Will you pay $10 for a gallon of gas or one? And in some cases, you have no choice, gas. But what matters? So let's talk a little bit about market valuation 101. An idea is an opportunity. An opportunity to create a business with an idea requires money. Money is raised based on equity or debt, mostly equity when you start a new business. And that is the beginning. And so people give you money based on what they're willing to pay, and they ultimately will need that money back. At one point in time, not so long ago, but it feels like forever, companies like Warby Parker, Allbirds, and others raised capital in the time of growth at all costs. Grow, grow, grow. And that they did. Except at the end, when they grew, they did not use margin-based marketing. They did not understand net profit margin. They were like, wait a minute, we have all these customers. We don't have enough inventory, and this isn't a great business model. And so come pandemic, where it still sort of happens, the great Mark Zuckerberg, sarcastic, not sarcastic, decides that Facebook needs to be profitable. Enter the era of profit. So we go from a revenue-based valuation to an EBITDA-based valuation, EBITDA, net margin. And the pendulum swings from one end of the spectrum to the other. We now have this moment of profitability where the capital markets are putting pressure on companies, whether they're private or public, to say, be profitable. Say, okay, we're going to be profitable. Bare bones. But guess what? Not everyone is Facebook. You do need to grow. You do need an income stream that's relying on customers. And guess what else? Customers cost money. So now we've gone from bare bones profitability to a moment now where we've transferred into the age of efficiency. Age of efficiency is something that we at RMW Commerce are speaking to people quite a bit about, because it is this balance between turn and margin, the valuation of your business based on your customers, the notion of acquiring a customer, retaining a customer, not thinking solely about my bottom line or my top line, but thinking about the trend of it all, which is to say free cash flow and other metrics that measure efficiency. we have to be aggressive about growth, but we have to be responsible about growth. What puts people out of business? Inventory. When you buy inventory, you are effectively taking your cash, which is your fuel, converting it to an asset. You must take that asset quickly and convert it back to cash. And that cycle is what allows you to grow. Thinking about things like the globalization of the workforce. Do you need to own employees? Do you need to pay benefits? Can you find that employee in Sri Lanka, Brazil, Estonia, India? And what can they do to benefit your organization? So today, I will leave you with that. And a little disappointed I didn't get the Age of Aquarius, like that we didn't put that together to cue me in.
You should
But
have.
it's crazy how logic works and how we now will be in and hopefully sustain the age of efficiency and what matters most to companies as they forge ahead in what I still think, Jess, based on credit card debt and other factors, is a very ugly economic moment in time. And that
The ugly
my friends,
2020.
is Kaplan's Corner.
Awesome.
I love it. Nicely done. Agree. We are in the age of efficiency.
We really are. And I think that when Darwin sort of was thinking this through, it's kind of what he had in mind.
Yeah. Chef's kiss, Nick. And we really appreciate those commentary. We're definitely, I think a lot of retailers, it's on their mind right now. And I think we're going to use this momentum to launch into our dance party, which means we need to understand, like, what moves does Nick Fury have?
Oh, yes. Yes. What would be the most efficient move for a chair dance in a virtual office party? We're about to show you guys. Stay tuned. Have a great weekend.
Give him the beat. Give him the beat.
On the beat, on the beat, on the beat. I'm going to reel Matt in. Here we go.